Pretty crazy, that's right. Highguard launches in just 7 weeks.
I stayed up until 4 AM expecting Half-Life 3, and this is what I get? When Highguard was first announced at the Game Awards late last year, obviously everyone knows that the reception the game first got was, well, less than favorable. And it's kind of easy to see why. I mean, when we think of the final trailer on Game Awards night, we think of huge titles that will generate a ton of hype. But instead, we got a game where the only thing it seemed it had going for it was that ex-Respawn Entertainment developers were making the game, who are obviously best known for Apex Legends and Titanfall. But when it's a new IP over something like a spiritual successor to Titanfall 2, especially considering that Titanfall 3 was reportedly cancelled, which if you can't tell still makes me very upset. Obviously, everyone was going to be mad, and with it seemingly having an undeserved spot as the last world premiere of the night, many people instantly called out Jeff for being paid off to show it in this slot. Only as it turns out, no. Jeff Keighley just loved the game that much that he wanted it to be in this spot of the show, to give this game he enjoyed so much the proper spotlight so it could succeed. Except now that Highguard has been released, I don't think that quite worked out. What would have just been a quiet flop, considering they wanted to initially shadow drop it, has now turned into a full-on hate train for the game, because of this artificial hype that Jeff was responsible for. I know he probably meant well, but Jeff really fucked the devs of this game over unintentionally. But of course, it is easy to see all the circumstances of Highguard's release and just mindlessly hate on it to join in on the bandwagon. However, I am a civilized robotic specimen that prefers to formulate my own opinions. And hey, with the game being free, there was literally nothing to lose in doing so. And after playing a few matches to give it a fair shot, yeah, they should have just called this slop guard. So what is exactly bad about the game? Where did they go so wrong? And does it have potential to be good in the future? Well, if you haven't played it yet, or you really don't plan to, which with this big of a drop-off in players already, I mean, who could blame you? Then allow me to explain the reasons why, as all the grifting Twitter accounts are saying, that Highguard is dead on arrival. And don't forget to subscribe, because once I reach 100,000 subscribers, my mom will finally unground me again. Please, I've been stuck in the house playing Highguard all week. I need this! Before we get too deep into the bad, I may need to explain how the game works to some of you, as if there is anything you can give the game credit for, the premise is actually a bit unique. Essentially, you start off your games with each team in a fort of your choice. Unfortunately, the map is constantly daytime, so there are no forts at night. You have a small period to reinforce your base a bit until you move on to the gear up section. Here you explore around the map, searching for loot boxes that will drop you some weapons and shields. Okay, are we sure this isn't Fortnite? You can face players in this phase, but typically the real fighting begins for the Shield Breaker, an item that once acquired lets you take it to the enemy's fort to allow you to disable their shield, enter in to destroy their generators, and thus winning the game. This phase is interesting because if you die, you're able to respawn at their fort by just simply dropping down into the map. Okay, there's no fucking way, this is just Fortnite! Jokes aside, when I say original, I do mean that in the loosest terms. Technically, I haven't really seen a shooter with this exact gameplay loop, but it's more of a combination of multiple games with all their different mechanics thrown together. You got Fortnite, you got Apex Legends, you got Rainbow Six Siege, you got Paladins if you can believe that. It's like they blended together all these different elements from various games to feed the following slop to the gaming masses. The only problem is, even the gamers don't want to eat this shit. Instead, we all on that new Deadlock update because we have refined palates. Despite the concept being a combination of all these mechanics though, there is some potential with the concept and a clear flow for the games that's easy to follow. The execution of all this though, yeah, not so much. My biggest gripe with Highguard that I've already seen a lot of people mention by now is the fact that this game is limited to 3v3. Now, this isn't inherently a problem. I mean, trio squads have become more popular over the years, and a 3v3 style PvP game isn't really anything too groundbreaking. The problem is, when you start to analyze all the features of Highguard, it really does make you begin to question why the fuck this decision was ever made in the first place. Although when the launch of this game had me unable to find players not once, not twice, but I don't know, I lost count. Then maybe there was a reason for this. Highguards matches take place on maps so big that they felt it was necessary to give you mounts to get around efficiently. Now that in itself is perfectly fine and makes sense. But when there's only 3 enemies to watch out for, the gearing up phase loses any sort of tension it could have possibly had. I've never really had to fight enemies to secure my loot in any of my games so far. You just freely loot with no consequences, and the fighting only ever really begins when the shield breaker drops. What this causes is a lot of dead moments in the game that just feel like they slow the momentum of it entirely down. Now imagine instead if this game was at the very minimum 6v6. Your team would have to equally split up across the map in order to loot efficiently, making the chances you come across enemy players far more likely. This would increase the tension of this phase, and these dead moments where nothing of substance is happening would be farther and fewer in between. Because I'm not just here to hoard items, I'm looking to kill! As well as this, I think it could make the actual base raids a lot more fun if there were more players on the field. With 3v3, it's far too easy to get a squad wipe, and it feels a little anticlimactic to have this ginormous siege tower break through just for 3 fucking dudes to run in. Because I'm really sorry, but that has negative aura loss. Raids could have been so much more, and I hate to use this word, epic! If there was an actual sizable group attacking, and you had to fend off the base using different strategies to hold them at bay, I just feel like these moments of the games would be more fun and way more interesting. Because at the moment, you don't really have to worry about getting flanked or attacks coming from all directions. They break through, you shoot at each other, and eventually someone either way wins. It's straightforward, it's boring, and it has no source. Which is another glaring problem Highguard has. Someone squeezed the ever-loving penis out of this bottle because there is not a single source to be had. I saw someone on Twitter say that Highguard looks like the front page of ArtStation, and it is so incredibly true. Nothing about this game really pops out to me as cool, and as a whole, it's just so damn generic. Yet another fantasy world with futuristic tech just thrown into the mix with zero cohesion whatsoever. I mean seriously, why does this world with all the magical abilities it has have what appears to be scrapped Titanfall gun designs? Couldn't these have been some form of magical guns? Or screw it, just go all in on the fantasy theming with just pure magic, swords, and bows. I mean, it worked with Spellbreak if anyone remembers that. Though, seeing how that game's doing now, yeah, forget I said anything. I'm wondering these days if devs realize how important style and theming is to their games these days. Deadlock has recently just proven that with its newest update. Besides the new heroes which have yet to all drop yet, it has shaken up the entire vibe of the game once again with new patrons, chat bubbles, and just a lot of things in general that crank the source up to 11 while also fitting the theme of the game perfectly, receiving immense praise as a result. He really just can't stop winning. It's not even all about the visuals though. Within the gameplay, there just seems to be a lack of any true memorable moments to be had throughout this game. Matches typically last anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes, and I don't think I could recall any moment that I thought, hey, that was cool, or I could not show you a single funny clip from this game like I could with the recent release of Arc Raiders. I could, however, tell you or show you the many times I simply raged at this game, which I should not be doing for a brand new release. It's overall a really frustrating experience. Gunplay isn't really that great, though I've heard people say that it feels better on console, so maybe this is just a mere technical issue. The movement feels pretty clunky, or at the very least pointless, especially when compared to some of their past games. Fighting on horseback is something you shouldn't even consider. It's just frustratingly annoying. And sure, maybe I am just bad at the game. It is new after all, and I don't claim to be some pro gamer. I mean, I could barely make it out of silver on CSGO. But when even someone like Shroud, a person that Tim the Scatman reacted to 12 minutes of him being a human aimbot, is saying there's problems with the gunplay too, then I don't think I'm alone on this one.
Dude, it's so hard to aim. It's so hard to aim. Like, I might actually need to load up a controller.
Even in fights, there's downtime for God's sakes. In any other game, including Apex Legends, the game that they worked on, if your shield is broken that game, then you have an opportunity to quickly get them back up if you are positioned well enough and get quickly back into the fight. Here though, you're stuck behind cover waiting for them to go back online, all the while you probably have the 3 musketeers rushing your bum ass while you're hiding behind a rock. There's no text chat, not even a scoreboard. A lot of key settings are missing in general. For a game that seems to be targeted a PvP player base with this 3v3 high consequence game gameplay, where death is very punishing, it doesn't really seem like they're trying to appeal to that player type. It doesn't know if it wants to be casual or competitive, and with ranked soon on the way, I don't believe many are gonna stick around to see how that goes. With all the faults I appear to have with Highguard, I don't want this to be a purely negative video either, especially after seeing how the developers recently said they never expected this level of hate, which just kinda makes me feel like an asshole for making this video, I won't lie. Under the surface, a lot of these issues I have with the game, there is genuinely the framework for an excellent game underneath them, if it manages to stay alive long enough to fix some of these issues. One sentiment I keep on seeing is that Highguard is the new Concord, which in my eyes signals you as nothing but a useless parasitic grifter that I need to get out of my line of sight immediately. While the gameplay has been frustrating, it is easily 10 times more satisfying than what Concord had to offer in its gameplay. And let's not even get started on the comparison of the characters. Oh my god! Get off my screen! Get off my screen! I may have said this game has little to no source, but the character designs aren't actually that bad. There are some cool ones here, the colors are well thought out, and sadly to say, some characters may have higher Rule 34 submissions than this game will eventually have players. I do like the concept of each team having these forts that you do have to raid into. It almost reminds me a little bit of 2 Fort from Team Fortress 2, or maybe an even more niche reference is this one Base Wars games I used to play on Roblox as a kid. Having to gear up with reinforcing materials as the defender, or with rockets as the attacker, just so you can bust into these bomb sites has so much potential to be tense and cool. Like, just imagine an actual full-size team trying to break into it while the other team defends. Hell, I would love to see a separate game mode with huge team sizes, almost like it's a Battlefield game, all the while keeping the base and competitive game modes and even 6v6. But the sign that Highguard isn't totally doomed is despite the fact that the games began a mass hate train, all of whose passengers have practically never given it a chance, on the other side, there are a decent amount of players who have actually tried the game and are now enjoying it. Maybe this is just a sign that the game personally isn't for me and many others, but it's proof it can cultivate an audience who resonate with it far better than I could. I mean, after all, this game was forced into a bad stigma early on thanks to Miss Piggy Sideho, so clearly I think this may have been a case of a large audience getting latched onto the game, when realistically, these types of players would have never been interested in the game if it came out more organically. To keep it basic, the launch of Highguard was a total disaster. Is it a bad game? Not necessarily total garbage, but it's far from being good. But does it have potential? Well, okay, it may have about as much potential as Megami Fushiguro, but I really do believe this game could easily turn the tide and make the game a lot more appealing to the masses. After all, there have been worse cases of games releasing in bad states and completely fixing all of these issues to bring the public's reception back to an all-time high. And those games initially were 10 times worse than what Highguard is now. All I think really needs a major tweak is the amount of players in the game, aiming on mouse and keyboard, and a few more options for the sweaty troglodytes to go full movement sweat and kill off the game anyways by being insufferable. Jokes aside, I hope Highguard has a chance to become something great eventually, so I can come back here and tell you how these devs eventually saved the game. But until then, we all hopping on deadlock, let's be for real.